Afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Jeff Halley, Senior Market Analyst, Asia Pacific at OANDA. Jeff, hi, as always. Thanks again for coming in.
Always a pleasure, Brian.
Now, before we get your insights, let's take a look and see how the crypto markets are performing. Now, the Bitcoin has had a run downwards. It is currently now 11.53% down at 46,482. We've got Ethereum, which is at 3,447.13. It's down 12.02%. Now, and we'll talk about that later, Jeff. I want to get your insights on that. But let's take a look at how the regional markets are performing. We've got the SGX, which is at 3,086. It's down 0.72%. Bursa Malaysia is at 1,582. It's down 0.14%. Now, looking across to regional markets, we've got the Nikkei, which is at 30,027. It's up 0.37%. Shanghai Composite is at 3,679.18. It's up 0.07%. The Hang Seng is at 26,217.38. It's down 0.52%. The ASX 200 is down 0.34% at 7,504.6. Rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is at 3,162. It's down 0.78%. What is your take on how markets have performed this morning, Jeff?
Well, we'll start with Japan first because that's really the outlier today. Most of Asia's pretty much either flat to slightly lower today, but Japan is yet again bucking the trend. And the reason for that is this ongoing situation with PM Suga stepping down. The markets are very vehemently pricing in further fiscal stimulus from whomever his successor is, and we should know that at the end of the month. So against that backdrop of potentially more fiscal stimulus, the Nikkei has continued to climb today, and it's up 5.5% for the week, and that's entirely based on that. As far as the rest of the market goes, China did open up slightly higher this morning, but that quickly faded. They have stimulus hopes from the government there as well. We saw, though, New York overnight come in a fairly somber mode. Instead of looking at the Fed or the non-farms as saying that the taper from the Federal Reserve would be pushed back into the future, they've looked at the data and decided that it's a warning that the global recovery or the US recovery could be slowing. That's seen a rotation out of growth in value stocks in the S&P 500 and the Dow and into the relative safety, supposedly, of technology. So we saw the NASDAQ holding steady overnight. That mood has flowed through to Asia today, and we're seeing most markets edging lower because of that.
Now, I want to ask you one thing about Japan, which is a spot of good news, which probably contributes also, besides the change in the politics of Japan. The economy saw a 1.9% annualized growth, which was much higher than the initial estimate of a 1.3% annualized growth, which was forecast by Reuters. I suppose that's something that basically helped boost sentiment in Japan this morning.
Sort of yes and no, because it's Q2, and as we know, in Q3, Japan has suffered at the wave of COVID-19, and that has definitely impacted domestic consumption. But also in Q1, the economy contracted by 4.2%. So that actual Q2 number is really only half of what it fell in the first quarter, and I think that's why there's been quite a muted reaction. And it's very unlikely now that Japan will recoup all of that 4% before the end of the year because of COVID-19 and the restrictions that are in place across the country there. So it's having a very little effect in the overall picture. It's the prospect, that carrot of more fiscal stimulus from the government, that's getting Japanese investors excited.
Now, I want to ask you about Bitcoin because earlier, just now, we basically saw Bitcoin at, I think, something around 46,000 plus, but it actually broke through 52,000 on late Monday, its highest level since May. Now, it has undergone a big correction because there were some issues with El Salvador in its implementation of recognizing cryptocurrency as a legal tender. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what your view of Bitcoin is in the near future?
Yeah, I guess I need to paraphrase this for all your viewers. I consider Bitcoin and cryptos in general to be a tradable asset, not necessarily an investable asset. So that's my disclaimer for the very part of that. I have actually been bullish Bitcoin for the last month or so, and I had a target of 51,000, which was reached, as you said, probably late last week because it traded at 52,000 plus on Monday. Look, El Salvador initiated this Bitcoin as legal tender last night. They had some issues, but actually really they've only bought about 400 Bitcoins, which is not a lot in the greater scheme of things. Sure, there would have been some profit taking once that had passed with relatively without incident. But I think what's happened is it's positioning. So there's been a lot of new money flow into Bitcoin once it broke 50,000. And once it broke down below 50,000, I think a lot of those fresh long positions got very nervous and they all ran for the door at once. And we all know what happens in cryptos when there's a lot of one-way price action, well, unidirectional price action. We usually get extreme moves. We saw, I think it was down 17% overnight, traded around 43,000 before recovering to around 46,000. So I think it's possibly a combination of El Salvador and extreme short-term long positions at not very attractive levels above 50,000 getting stopped out.
You know, I want to talk about another commodity which is impacted by now a change in sentiment, oil prices, because the narrative of global growth has changed into one of slowing growth. How is that, in your view, going to impact oil markets?
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to start hearing more about the K-shaped recovery once again, where some countries recover a lot faster than others. That's a situation we've been dealing in ASEAN, a reality we've had to accept over the last few months because of the Delta variant of COVID-19, but it does appear to be making its way through to China and to the United States now. So that capital K will probably become a small K. And I think we're going to have to accept that growth is not going to be as exponential as was hoped even just a quarter ago as the global recovery or as the economies reopen post COVID-19. Delta variant is seen to that. So, you know, we're seeing OPEC plus adding 400,000 barrels per day on a monthly basis going, and that's occurring just as the perceptions that global growth and the data as well are suggesting that that recovery is going to be slower than expected. So I expect that oil will remain under pressure over the next few days. And I know also that the US dollar fell quite strongly last week, but oil didn't rally. So it's definitely, from a trading perspective, it's had a failure of upward momentum over the last few days. And that suggests to me that there's probably more juice to the downside for prices in the near term.
Okay, more juice for the downside. I'll keep that in mind. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure, mate.
Now, we've been speaking to Jeffrey Halley, Senior Market Analyst, Asia Pacific at OANDA on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages as well as our other platforms. So please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.